the idea for this project was around education. Okay, I wanted to explore a classroom setting. In engineering, I started thinking about how am I going to teach an engineering class at U of I or wherever I will be. And one of the things that I wanted to incorporate was dance. I said, can we take students in engineering in a classroom and make them move? Can we find a reason for that? So I think that's the first motivation, was to think about education. Can we combine engineering students and dance students in projects with defined objectives? So the idea was to bring those two things together in a classroom setting. I see sort of this competition between online education, a very standard form, and trying to bring something to a classroom that could not be taught otherwise. So, and not just maybe not just at the undergraduate level, but also in high schools and middle schools throughout the country, this sort of STEM and arts education cannot be replicated because it carries with it the presential experience that is inherent to being in a room with people dancing, with people, calculating and coding at the same time.
Engineers tend to work on projects, and these projects are very long-term. And there's steps, for example, in designing something. There's steps initially drafting, getting ideas, then doing some computer-aided engineering, then maybe some analysis of the design, then maybe some limited component testing, then on to the final design. So you're looking at a very long time scale. With dance and musicians and improvised dance and music, although the time scale for learning of the professions very much long-term in both of them. But in constructing a performance, that activity might, for example, with this performance tonight, that activity of putting it together and constructing between the dance improvisation is on the scale of a week. But yet, a lot of the processes are the same, the iterative processes. I'm going to enter here, I'm going to do this here, you wait here, let's work towards this goal. And this teamwork and this iteration and review and then adjusting, if you'll let me call the performance the design, happens in this time scale that you can view and learn from that time scale.
The basis of all my work is to do collaborations. So I'm collaborating with these wonderful dancers, we're collaborating with the engineers just to see what is possible. And we did that last year, and I think we've come further this year.
Yeah, DHCP yourself, or no.
Well, you'll
It's like, I hope so, just having a good time.
This is your part. This is your part.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking about saying.
Okay, that's perfect.
Well,
for the Dixieland, this one, is it still going to be the same?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm still looking at like downstage here. The banjo is going to be up here.
Let's run it right now.
Okay, let's run it right now and check if it works.
Oh, just 192 that way. None.
All right.
That's better.
The first activity is supposed to start at 9:15. That's the tuba?
Yeah. That's not too low.
Our breakout strip for that.
Too far.
Oh, so the banjo is over here.
If you get within about 3 feet of any camera, then not enough of the cameras can see.
Okay.
I think some of the most meaningful experiences I've had from this project was the educational outreach with the fifth graders coming through Tryon Fest. The kids were really engaged that I presented for. They were really into the technology and they appreciated it, which I enjoyed.
Can you guys tell me what's different about this image that you have not seen before? Tell me. No. It has something. Go ahead.
The dots are different colors.
The dots are different colors. So the computer somehow figure out that there's two people in the room. Okay? That's a very big challenge because the cameras only see dots. Right? Who wants to stand here next to me?
Me.
Okay. So now the computer knows there's two people. Go ahead, do that again.
The same color.
But you see, when he's trying to tap on my shoulder, something's happening. What's happening?
He lost his arm.
He lost his arm. All these things the computer's doing. Now, if Max and I stand next to each other very close, or if I stand behind him, oh, I disappeared.
I mean, we've talked about bringing the project into a school and what would it mean for us to be actually set up, for example, in Yankee Ridge Elementary School for a whole week and involve the kids, like create a whole curriculum around the technology and the artistic portions of the project. We did 4 different activities with 5th graders from 2 different elementary schools from Urbana. And I think it was a great experience both for them and us in how can we make this accessible to young kids and what about it is exciting to them, what about it is important to them, both from the engineering perspective and from the dance perspective. And so get them to be able to experience like firsthand something that, you know, they would only see. I was like, oh, that's how movies are made, or oh, that's, you know, something that is outside of their reality, and actually bring them in and say, this is part of the world you live in. This is something that you could do. This is something that you can take part in. I think it's a very, very powerful message to send to some of these kids. So we're gonna go 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's not first. Can you hear? Okay, so let's just put the music again. And what I want you to do this time is just move your dots as fast as you can and listen. Did you learn something new?
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Let me know if you're ready about the form.
I will.
Thank you.
How do you do guys?
This was much better.
I liked your restructuring.
Thank you. The first group was a little like knowledge. So, because 2 things were very different for us with the second group. One is that they came with a knowledge already. And the fact that you have in the slides also that, you know, the speed can change what's going on. you know, the spaces might have something to do with what instrument plays. So they already had a lot of ideas that the other group didn't. So that's one big thing, I think.
Yeah.
And the other thing, it was that we did restructure the way that we did it, and it worked a lot better.
One thing that I was so impressed, all of them have played with Kinect. None of them knew how it works.
What?
The moment you explain that to them, they really click.
Video only gets you so far. When you're actually moving, doing something and seeing something tracking you within a milliseconds, then that sticks.
Teaching them, one of the things I try to teach was what an algorithm is. And I gave very,
I was like, you're strange
I'm glad I
to
didn't
me
have your
because I
job.
don't know.
and I gave them very basic examples for them to think, we can make the music louder when you move faster, or we can make the music very low when you move faster. For us, we're just changing the algorithm. Changing the algorithm is something a programmer does.
If we do get the MoCA system to work well enough to actually create a musical instrument out of the body, out of the motion capture, would be absolutely phenomenal. And I think it would bring a whole new level of complexity in the part of the improvisation in an actual performance.
Emilia and I talked about this example, Camille and I, it's a violin what we're trying to build, right? The person that builds the violin is an artist himself. Mm-hmm. He's a carpenter with engineering tools. Mm-hmm. He builds this device which is a violin, and it's an engineering piece, right? And at the end of the day, you have emotions that are translated into sound, and it's all through this piece of engineering that had no heart to start with.
This duet worked.
This duet was very good. Yeah, you're in it.
Try to make it a bit.
Dance gestures are coming in. What's coming out is sound. The range of things that we've done with this is pretty broad. The number of inputs we have in terms of position, average position of all people, the number of clusters, number of performers there are, how fast they're moving, the history of how fast they've been moving, acceleration, energy. These are all things that we can extract out of the point data. The number of things we can map that onto for a particular musical synthesis algorithm is similarly dozens of things, and it's more like a telephone switchboard. You got a bunch of inputs and you got a bunch of outputs. How many ways are there of wiring these things together? How many ways could you creatively, artistically wire a telephone PBX?
We're also looking at the different axes of motion. So we actually look at what are the principal directions of motion and how that's changing time. So we have what's called the three principal directions of their body, which is from calculating what's called the tensor, inertia tensor, right? So we know how their orientation is changing in time. For example, one of the things that James works on is calculating the principal axis of the inertial tensor.
Oh, yeah, we find the inertia tensor of the point masses, and from that we get we take the QR factorization to find the change in orientation from time step to time step. Use that as an angular velocity. Okay. And from that we can quantify angular momentum, rotational inertia XYZ, as well as translational inertia. And that kind of makes it more responsive and a bit more ambiguous, and it's more computing power as well.
So now he has 9 components of the version to work with. You see, you can diagonalize the metrics.
But the actual dialogue between us all is often quite hard because they speak a language that I don't understand, and often we're speaking a language that they don't understand. So, and so that's not been necessarily easy.
A good example was for the education activities, trying to figure out what aspects or what elements of dance and movement could fit in to what could be programmed into the computer for the mocap system to work in a particular way. You only see 2? I only see 2 also. Where's the other?
Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Oh, that was gone again. It keeps going up too high.
Now you remember what we saw on the screen. How did it seem? How did it look? Just a bunch of dots. They don't know who you are or where you are in space. You're just a bunch of dots for the computer. So when you're moving in space, you need to be working together to make changes to the sound.
Get together. Well, now I'm here. It's different instruments.
Now what is that? Okay, hold on, don't move. What instrument can you hear the most?
Tuba.
It's a trombone. Close enough. Trombone.
Over here.
Okay, so that's the other trombone.
Where Adele was. We have 3. Coffee. Let's move this way. Move this way. Under my
Try to find it. Clarinet is somewhere in this area. The banjo is somewhere in this area in the back, and then the drums are somewhere in that area.
And the whole band is in the middle.
The what? The whole band is in the middle, but it's also anywhere else where the other ones are not mapped. So we found that in this corner we could also hear the entire band.
The coolest thing is just working with intensely creative types, which are way out of my own discipline, who work in a completely different way that I do, and it really whacks me upside the head in terms of my own working procedures.
The 2 are completely different beasts entirely. With an engineering project, you're trying to make an object. Right now I'm working in a design class and we're trying to make a consumer product. And I'm working my team and you run through ideas, but with this you're trying to make like a meaningful presentation. And that's a bit different than a consumer product. You consider different things, suddenly the aesthetics of it are way more important than the functionality. However, it still must work, so both components are there.
My formal training is in software and in music composition. My practical skills may be more important here in terms of how to solder, how to bolt on a heat sink that's fallen off in transit. What's the fussiest thing about this setup is the actual mocap, which does work a lot better in a static industrial setting, or like an industrial video game producing setting, than taking it on the road all the time.
Yeah, but I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be like a really nice way to
We'll have some by Friday.
No, that's not what I meant. We're gonna do this quick. Break the world record.
Bring the card over here instead of bringing the cameras here.
Thanks for your patience.
Would that performance space work there for you?
No, we'll use this whole area here. So the
Okay,
chairs.
where do you want to put the, so the chair's here,
Yeah.
the chair's here?
Yeah.
And then, okay, so then maybe we can relocate the computers back there.
Now.
Okay, and you know, when you walked in there, we could
Yeah.
key something just when you walked in there and then walked out.
But if
But-
it's just on, it would. Every time we walk that way, the music would come on, right, and then we come out.
Yeah.
On and on.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll just walk in and out
Yeah.
for the first part, and then we'll do some of our stuff out here, and then some inside.
Okay, and what kind of sounds would you like?
I just want to give them, a playground, if you like, a cool sandbox, a set of nice toys, and trust that their own creativity, their own random backgrounds can make it do things that I wouldn't have thought of.
When people of different groups come together, something unexpected that nobody's planning can happen, and that can't happen when they're isolated and separated from each other.
When you improvise, it's really important for me to have that kind of relationship with the people that I work with, because there has to be a mutual trust, because it's improvised, so we don't know what we're going to do. So there has to be a measure, for me, a measure of trust, so that the performance is not just about us figuring each other out. There's a measure of trust there, so that we can go somewhere together, hopefully, on a journey, unknown journey at this point. So we have no score really for tonight. We've just worked together, we've collaborated, we've performed together before, and we'll continue that journey tonight. So
neither movement from nor towards, neither ascent nor decline, except for the point, the still point. There will be no dance, and there is only the dance.
Sure, we've learned a lot, and we, advance programming, and it gives a tactile way to do some engineering design, so there's an education deliverable, again, for lack of a better word. But the real thing is the communication. So I think that the thing that really came out after these 2 years is this equilibrium in dialogue and interaction, this balance between different disciplines.